Minister Kopo-kun, ministers, distinguished guests and speakers, good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First of all, I think I would like to express our appreciation to the Singaporean government for providing us with this excellent platform for launching the IEA's Southeast Asia Energy Outlook. This outlook sets out the challenges, opportunities, and the potential path that this region can take to secure its energy future. We hope that it will help guide actions and decisions of policymakers, energy business, and other actors and stakeholders in the regional energy system. IEA is actually going digital. I'm not. But this Outlook is an online resource that anyone can freely access on the IEA website. So please, I would like to encourage you to visit our website. Now, Southeast Asia has emerged as a kind of heavyweight in the global energy, with energy demand growing by 80% since year 2000, and the electricity demand increasing by 6% per year. Some of the fastest growth in the world. Looking to 2040, with today's policy ambitions by the governments, Southeast Asia will continue to see the rapid energy demand growth taking its place as one of the key global centers for energy. It would add the equivalent of the current energy system of Japan to the global energy demand, making up more than 10% of global energy demand growth. The share growth in oil would be closer to 20%, for coal, even more. Universal electricity access is achieved soon after 2030, although the per capita power use will remain low. Close to 180 million people remain without clean cooking access by 2040. Meeting the rapid increase in energy demand will require an enormous mobilization of the energy sector investments. The region requires $120 billion in investment per year to 2040, which is 50% more than the amount invested in the sector in last year, 2018. Southeast Asia looks to all fields to meet this rapidly rising energy demand. With the current level of policy ambitions, coal, oil, and gas meet 80% of demand growth to 2040. Southeast Asia's oil demand surpasses 7 million barrels per day by 2040, up from just about 5 million barrels per day today. Oil continues to dominate the road transport demand, despite an increase in consumption of biofuels or the electrification of mobility, with a partial exception of 2 or 3 wheelers. Is set to make only limited inroads, so implying a kind of a troubling outlook for the urban air quality. Gas faces a competing pressure in Southeast Asia. It is a good fit for the region's fast-growing cities and the lighter industries, but the increasing reliance on imports makes the fuel less price competitive. It is the industrial consumers rather than the power plants that are the largest source of growth. Southeast Asia is actually the only region in the world where the coal is projected to increase its share in the energy mix over the next 20 years. Renewables meet only 20% of total energy demand in 2040, marginally up from 15% today. The continued predominance of fossil fuels will lead to 2/3 increase in CO2 emissions and a 50% increase in the premature death from the air pollution by 2040 from today's levels. Electricity demand in the region is set to grow rapidly by 4% per year, and the growing middle class increases the use of appliances and the household cooling. Power generation capacity additions in Southeast Asia in the previous 2 decades were dominated by coal and gas. while the hydropower led a significant contribution from the renewables. Wind and solar PV additions were actually small, limited. In the period to 2040, we project significant capacity additions of around 450 gigawatt, or the equivalent to the park capacities in France, Germany, and the UK combined. So both coal and the gas, the capacity additions continue strongly. And we also see very large additions in renewables, especially the solar PV. While capacity growth is a very important signal for the investors, it is not necessarily a good guide to the growth in generation. So generation from the renewable sources they only covers about a third of the growth in the overall the electricity demand. The rising share of renewables in overall generation that will reach 30% in 2040 from the 24% today is well below the level reached in China, India, and other parts of Asia. And half of $120 billion of yearly energy investment required to 2040 is in the power sector. So bringing more renewables online will require clear signals of commitment by the policymakers and the enhancement of investment conditions to encourage the private sector financing. With strong energy demand growth and static or the falling upstream energy supply, energy security and energy import bills are becoming a serious concern for the Southeast Asia region. Southeast Asia's considerable oil, natural gas, and coal resources have traditionally allowed the region to keep its energy trade balance in check. But the Southeast Asia is on the verge of becoming a net importer of energy, and its net import bill will rise sharply. So demand for oil rises by around 30%, and that for natural gas by 80% in our stated policy scenario to 2040. At the same time, oil production falls by 1/3, and the gas production increases only slightly. So Southeast Asia, traditionally and the important exporter of LNG, becomes a net importer in the late 2020s. So in 2040, the Southeast Asia will register a net deficit in energy trade of over $300 billion in this scenario. So investing in energy efficiency would become crucial, utilizing the competitive priced domestic energy resources and ensuring that the price reflects the market fundamentals. The scenario that we have discussed so far, which is called the stated policy scenario, which used to be called the NPS, New Policy Scenario, until last year, shows that Southeast Asia is on track to meet some key energy policy goals, such as achieving universal electricity access. But it also highlights that the region's current and the planned policies fall far short of improving the environmental sustainability and reducing the climate-related risks, and that they create additional vulnerabilities in terms of energy security. The transition of the Southeast Asia's energy system towards the low-carbon pathway based on the sustainable development scenario of the IEA would yield the manifold benefits on all of these fronts. But this accelerated transition, fully in line with the objectives of the Paris Agreement, would require a strong additional push from the policymakers. So multiple approaches across all sectors will be required. Different renewable technologies, including the bioenergy, and a range of energy efficiency policies do much of the heavy lifting, but other technologies, including the carbon capture utilization and storage, CCUS, play important roles. Changes in the energy mix and the improvements in energy efficiency would also slash the energy import bills, saving nearly $200 billion annually on energy imports by 2040, compared with the region's current trajectory. So this alone would already offset much of the additional investment required to achieve the sustainable energy targets. So the carbon emissions would be reduced to 30% below the 2018 levels, and the main air pollutants will fall. Not only the universal access, but also the clean cooking access will be achieved. So we hope, therefore, that the policymakers see that the energy transitions along the sustainable development scenario as not only technically doable, but also financially beneficial and desirable. As introduced by Mr. Ko, the following a call by the ASEAN member states in 2018, the IEA has undertaken extensive analysis on ASEAN's power system integration and the links with the renewable scale-up. The IEA's feasibility study for the multilateral power trade sets out the policy and the regulatory options that the ASEAN countries can pursue. The integrating the power systems it allows countries to access the lowest cost generation sources in their neighborhood and taking advantage of different seasonal patterns of power supply. Integration also allows the balancing of variable renewables over a larger area and can connect the renewables to the demand centers. Indeed, there are significant benefits. Reductions in the power supply costs, improvements in the electricity supply security, and the scaling up of the renewable deployments. Multilateral power trade in ASEAN is feasible, but requires data sharing, institutional, and technical the standard harmonization. ASEAN can pursue different models of trade. These include initially the more harmonized frameworks for trade, the trading of power excesses and shortfalls between countries, and the full regional integration in the long term, if so desired. The cooling is also a key focus of this year's the outlook. So cooling efficiency is quickly emerging as the kind of a front line of the energy efficiency battle in hot countries. Today, 90% of the households in the United States and Japan have air conditioners versus around 15% in Southeast Asia. Yet, the need for cooling in this region is more than 4 times that of Japan. So with rising incomes, the number of household air conditioners will increase by a factor of 8 to 2040. As a result, so cooling will be the single largest driver of electricity demand growth in ASEAN to 2040, pushing up big demand, and this would mean the major strains on the power system. But it doesn't have to be this way. The average efficiency of the air conditioners in Southeast Asia remains low. The average efficiency of air conditioners in Japan is more than 65% higher than the average efficiency in ASEAN. Cooling energy demand could be halved to 2040 if the IEA's recommended policies are implemented. And in fact, the high efficiency ACs, air conditioners, are available in almost all ASEAN countries for no more than the average price for an air conditioner of the same size, and often manufactured in this region. So policy is therefore required to guide the consumers toward the smart choices. So strengthening the mandatory energy performance standards combined with the labeling programs are crucial. So IEA is active in providing the technical assistance and the capacity building on the energy efficiency. So in the past 4 years, more than 1,300 policymakers from over 90 countries have participated in the IEA's global training program for the energy efficiency, with over 1/3 of these coming from this region, Southeast Asia, with events in Singapore, Indonesia, and Thailand. So here are the key messages. So first, this region needs to ramp up the energy investment. Second, the Southeast Asia becomes a potentially large net importer of energy. So energy efficiency and competitive pricing of energy resources are needed to enhance energy security and to reduce the import bills. Third, much work needs to be done to reach the 70% of the renewables in the generation mix by 2040, as in the sustainable development scenario. Fourth, moving towards the more sustainable energy trajectory would not only mitigate the climate change and air pollution, but also benefit economies. Finally, the IEA, the All Fuel, and we are All Fuel and All Technology organization, is well placed to assist the Southeast the Asian countries to achieve their energy policy goals. So we all look forward to collaborating with you. Thank you for your attention.